Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, friends, and welcome. Good evening. Good evening. Wonderful. Good to be here this evening again as we come on Beyond the Pain live video. Let me just give some time for friends to join us, both on Facebook and here on Instagram as well, and on YouTube. Good evening. Welcome. It's time for Beyond the Pain live video. We come here every Tuesday evening, as often as it is possible, as God gives the grace and strength, to talk about our journey beyond the pain. This is all about finding purpose beyond the pain. This is all about experiencing healing that takes us beyond the pain. And that's what we teach here. That's what we talk about. That's what I come to share with you. My name is Irene Titidola Olumese. I'm a trauma informed specialist and is trauma care informed specialist, and I am a trauma transformational coach. I'm a faith informed transformational coach. Everything that I do in this space is anchored on the truth of God's word and its power to bring healing to us and the places where we have been wounded, where we have experienced pain, whatever the cause of that pain could be. And over the past few weeks, we have been talking about the importance of experiencing restoration to wholesomeness. And I've talked about what would lead us to be unwholesome when we have been experienced something that hurts deeply. It brings along with it the possibility of having wounds deep within us in the innermost part of our being. And what that leads to is that we have something deep there that is festering, an unhealed wound that is festering, that begins to influence and affect the things that we do and how we do it, the way we show up and how we show up. And one of the things that is becoming more and more real to me is that pain has power. Pain is powerful. As much as pain has, a message, pain is also extremely powerful. It has the power, to dictate our present situation. The pain of our past, something that has happened to us in the past, has the power to dictate how we show up today, how we experience relationships, how we manage situations and circumstances that comes our way. But it's not only enough that pain can dictate what happens to us today. It can also direct what happens tomorrow. So I mean, it's so much power for pain to have to dictate our present and direct our future. And it's so much power to give to something that had happened to us in the past, to begin to sh- direct how we show up in the present and how we move forward. Nobody moves forward with their eyes fixed on the rear view mirror. There is no way we can make a forward movement with our eyes fixed on the rear mirror. And that's why it's important for us to experience emotional healing. And a whole component of that emotional healing is restoration to wholesomeness. Our emotional healing allows us to experience a restoration of the broken pieces, for the broken pieces of our lives to come back together again, for the place where we have been wounded to experience healing. And when we experience healing in the deep places, it affects the whole of our lives. It affects the way we show up. It affects the way we transact in our relationships. It affects the way we behave towards others. It affects the way we handle future challenges. And that's why it is not optional for us as human beings to be in that place where we can be whole again, where we can be wholesome in our thoughts, in our emotions, and be whole in the essence of who we are. I say here that, God desires that we be, that it's be well with you and I, that we be in good health, even as our soul prospereth, that we prosper and we be in good health. And for our souls to prosper, to thrive, to flourish, it means that it is whole, it is together, it is healed, it is not in a place of woundedness. If there's any word like that. And so many things can bring wounding to our soul. And if you've been watching me for long enough, you would have seen some of my teachings on the subject of wounds in our soul. But tonight, you see, I want to talk about the power of vulnerability and teachability and transformation in experiencing this restoration to wholesomeness that we've been talking about over the past few weeks. The power of vulnerability in order for us to experience that transformative change that brings us to wholesomeness, that brings us to wholeness, that brings us to a place of healing, a place where we are fully together, nothing missing. And it is interesting that this truth was highlighted for me in a remarkable way today. I was at two different meetings, conversation today, and they are both unrelated. Two different groups of people in a conversation, upholding one another, enriching one another, praying together, and facilitating deep reflection for one another about how we have experienced God's love. And that was what we do in that group. I belong to a group of women who are called Life Spring Ministries, which is where I trained, to become a minister. And in that conversation, something became vivid for me, and that the role that vulnerability plays in order to bring us to the space where we are teachable so that we can experience the transformation we need in the innermost part of a being that would now bring us to a place of healing and restoration to wholesomeness. So there's three elements here, and I'm going to be examining them over the next couple of weeks. The power of vulnerability, the power of teachability, and the power of transformative change. The power of vulnerability, the power of teachability, and the power of transformative change all coming together, harnessed together, when we embrace them, that can bring us to the place of healing in our emotions, healing in our souls, that brings us to the place where our souls can prosper. It brings a shift in our souls that tilts us to the place of thriving in our innermost part of our being. And as I came out of this two conversations that led me to think deeper about these three concepts of vulnerability, teachability, and transformation. I realized that I myself, in these two separate conversations, actually experienced it on a personal basis, at a personal level. And one of the things that facilitated being able to be vulnerable was the fact that we were able to create an environment of safety, an environment of trust, where it was easy for us to open up and talk about those things that are deep within, knowing that and be confident that the people that you're sharing with are trustworthy. You see, for transformation to take place, we need to be able to recognize that something is not right within, that we are not experiencing the fullness of life, the fullness of joy, the peace that we have been bestowed with by God, who is our Father. He wants us to have peace. He wants us to have joy that is not determined by our circumstances. There's a peace of the Lord that passeth all human understanding, garrisons our heart against every agitating fears. But when we have no peace in us, they're restless. There's something in our soul that is not the way it should be. There's something in our soul that is calling out for help. For some of us, it may be a significant loss. And in the process of grieving, we become wounded in deep within. For some of us, it may be betrayal that got us wounded. For some, it is traumatic experiences that we had in the past, painful experiences, rejection, abuse, name it, that's brought us to that place where we are wounded on the inside. And eerily, I know that God desires for you and I to have healing and be restored to wholesomeness in every sphere of our lives, starting with the innermost part of our being. And that's what I understand from that scripture, that I desire, I pray that you be well, it all will be well with you, that you will prosper even as your soul prospereth. And that's why I've been talking a lot about soul prospering, our soul thriving, our soul flourishing. And our souls will thrive and flourish when we deal with those things that have wounded us on the inside. No matter how long ago or how recent the incident may be that has wounded us on the inside, when we are able to experience that healing, it allows our souls to flourish. Our emotions becomes wholesome when we are healed in the innermost part of our being. I cannot overemphasize the importance of inner transformation, what happens in the heart, what happens in our soul to the well being of our entire person. And as a whole package, WHO defines health not only in terms of physical health, it talks about emotional, psychological, mental health, everything that relates to you. It is the total package. If one part of you is broken, every part of you suffers from it. Just catch your pinky in the middle of a door, and the searing pain goes to every part of your being. And so, one thing that I want you to know is that experiencing emotional healing is not just about, a temporary feeling that I feel better. It's not just about a temporary experience. Emotional healing that I've been talking about over the past few weeks is talking about experiencing true wholesomeness, true transformation in the innermost part of your being. Emotional healing is about experiencing true restoration, true wholesomeness, everything coming together. All right? And this is possible, but it is only when we are willing to be vulnerable, to be open, to be honest, to lay it bare before God first and foremost, and allow Him to heal us. I mean, vulnerability will require us to be open, to be honest, to be ready to bear all before God. And that's where the healing begins. And so, when we talk about being vulnerable, I know everybody can be scared, especially when experience have dictated that you've been open with people and they have betrayed your trust. If you have been wounded in the past, they, you are going to be very guarded about where you bear your emotions. If you've been wounded, if you have been hurt by people, if you've been betrayed by people, You find it difficult to trust. And you see, as a transformational coach, one of the things that I have to do is to create that space where my client can trust again, can feel safe to be vulnerable. Because if the person sitting in front of me is not going to be open and honest about what they are experiencing, it's going to make the work doubly difficult. It's going to make the work doubly challenging. And so it is important for us to be at that place where we're going to be able to open up about what has happened to us. And for us to experience this transformation, it begins with the way we think. It begins first in the way we think. We have to change the way we think in order for us to experience, true restoration, true healing. See, one thing is sure, that's vulnerability will do for you is to make you open to new knowledge. And that's why vulnerability and teachability are closely related. And in the next episode, I'm going to be talking about the power of teachability. Today, let's just talk about the power of vulnerability. There is a humility and openness that is needed for us to be truly vulnerable. And that is what creates the foundation for the new thing that can come into us. When we open up what is there, if you have a boil, a big boil, and you go to the hospital, what the doctors would tend to do is to incise it, open it up, drain the abscess, and clean it out so and air it so that that wound can heal. And the same thing is with the wounds in our souls, the abscess in our souls. We need to be willing to allow perhaps a professional, perhaps somebody who knows how to do this, to help us open up that abscess, that wound in a safe place. Drain out the abscess, drain out all the gory things that have built up there, and then allow it to air so that it can heal again. It is allowing ourselves, vulnerability is allowing ourselves to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I went to a space, meaning I'm a transformational coach, but I also have people that I go to support me in my coaching, people that I can talk to. There is nothing that is as lonely as not having someone to be able to talk to in a open, bear it all manner. We all need somebody that we can talk to, somebody that we can trust, somebody that we can say, look, I have these questions. I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. And I have such people too. I need such people too as a coach. And I can walk to and say, look, I have some I have some questions. And I had that experience today as I was talking with another coach. And you see, one of the things that was so enlightening and inspirational about our conversation today was the fact that I went into that conversation with an attitude to learn, that I don't have all the answers. I have lots of questions. I don't have all the answers. And I want to come and share those questions with you. And so that together we can reflect on those questions and come to a place where we receive understanding and illumination. And the power of a coach is to be able to make such inquiries that will help us to have reflective thinking. It will help us to go into the place of deep reflection. And most of the time, we have the solutions, we just cannot recognize them. We can't see what is in our blind spots. And so, for us to be vulnerable, meaning it requires us to say, I admit that I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers. And right now, I'm not seeing it, even if it is there. And I need someone to reflect back to me what I am seeing, what I'm saying, in order for me to see what is hidden, what is in my blind side that I'm not seeing. And that's what my fellow colleague coach helped me to do today. I mean, we both reflected on the questions that I came with. And, in that space, it meant that I was willing to say, I don't know. And that requires humility. We are professional colleagues, yes. But I was willing to say, I don't know. I don't have an answer right now. I don't have clarity about X, Y, Z. And in the process of that conversation, and the fact that I was humble enough to admit and open to say, this is what I know, this is where I am, and her skill as a coach coming into play, I came away with answers. But it wasn't as if she was giving me the answers. I had those answers already. I just wasn't seeing it. So you see, that is the power of talking to someone else. It's the power of being vulnerable in a safe place where you can open it up to someone else, you know, and ultimately it requires humility. It requires a willingness to let go of our ego and the need to appear that I know it all. No, we miss out on the help that could be available to us when we think and behave that we know it all. And I listened to a lady recently who was literally pleading with her followers that learn to ask for help. You don't have to pretend to be a strong woman. Been there, done it. I've done that in the past in my life where I tried to be a strong, macho woman, multitasker, always under pressure. I mean, I believed a lie that I needed to be under pressure for me to be able to be productive. But that is not true. You don't have to, you don't have to always be strong. It is okay to embrace vulnerability. It's okay to say that I can't do this by myself. I need help. It is okay to say, can you help me? I'm struggling with this. And for many of us who have experienced traumatic, pain, traumatic experiences, things that have wounded us, it is important for us to be willing. No, it doesn't contain any music. No. It is important for us to be able to open up ourselves and okay, let's see what's happening on our live video and Instagram. We're not playing any music. It's just us. I don't know what's going on. So we're gonna start it all over again, and hopefully we have not lost what we have been doing before. All right, friends. All right. For those of you on Instagram, I'm sorry, I don't know what went wrong. I just shut down. And so we'll continue from where we stopped. All right. So I was just saying that it's okay for us to ask for help. It's okay to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers. And it is in that space of vulnerability that we create room for growth, for improvement. Believe me today, those two conversations that I had and just today have, they shifted something for me. And that is what the power of vulnerability brings to us, especially for those of us who want to go beyond our painful experiences, to transform our pain to something that is meaningful, something that is significant, something that will have eternal value. See, being vulnerable means that I am receptive to feedback. Many of us don't like being criticized. I'm number one. I don't like criticism at all. Ah, it makes my skin crawl. But I know that if I am going to grow, if I'm going to continually become a better version of me, if I don't want to be static, I have to be willing enough I have to be willing to be vulnerable enough to be receptive to feedback. Sometimes that feedback may not be as constructive as what I want it to be. And there comes maturity, the ability to be able to sift through what I'm hearing and take the one that is useful for me in the moment. It means that I'm willing to consider other viewpoints that are maybe different from mine. If you are not vulnerable or willing to be vulnerable, it will be difficult for you to accept other people's viewpoints. It will be difficult for you to listen to others what they have to say. And you never know how what others have to say can encourage you in your own journey, can help you to walk your own journey. Because sometimes when people have gone on that journey in advance of us, they know, they've experienced it, and they can call out to us, look, there are pitfalls along this path. You can navigate this path better if you do it this way, that way. But that can only happen from the place of vulnerability. Being vulnerable helps us to expand our understanding. It helps us to see with clarity. It helps us to see better what is in the shadows. You know, many of us, um, we unconsciously, because of what has been imputed into our mind, experiences that we have gone through, we behave and have experienced. And many times we may not even be conscious of what we are doing, how we are doing it. We're not conscious of what we are emitting. Others see and they can call our attention to it. And at such time, we cannot be angry. We need to give ourselves the opportunity to reflect on what they are saying. And so, which part of this is true? And it would be at such times good to call on somebody who is close to you or somebody you can trust. Or go get yourself a specialist who knows their audience and say, people say this about me, and I've been thinking about it. Is this really me? I need an opportunity to think deeper about this. That can only happen when we are willing to be vulnerable. You know, part of the power of vulnerability is that it allows us to acknowledge and honor our feelings, our emotions, our experiences. I was having a conversation recently with a friend of mine who lost her daughter. And I knew where she is because I knew she's still hurting, she's in pain. But you see, she was willing to talk about that pain and the conversation that she was having with God about the death of her daughter. But if you couldn't talk about it to just anyone, that conversation. And she said to me, you know what? Irene, you're the only one I can tell this that can understand. And why would she be able to say that? Because she knew that I've lost a daughter before. And I knew the pain of losing a daughter. Even though I never got the opportunity to take my home or even hold her or even see her, I only felt her. I never saw her. I never carried her. I never got the opportunity to take her home. But you see, because I have gone that journey and I could create a space for her to be able to open up about the pain, the questions that she was having, and the conversations she was having with herself. But you see, it took courage on her own side to say, look, I want to talk about this. I know that it may not come out right. I know it may sound as that maybe I've lost my faith. I haven't lost my faith. I just have these questions that I'm struggling with. And because she was willing to be vulnerable, she opened up, she aired it. And in that safe space, we were able to examine what are the key issues here and comforted one another. And she left that conversation actually smiling. We ended it on such a light mood because she was relieved. There was a weight that was lifted off her shoulders because she found a safe place where she could talk about what is deep within. Being able to open up and share what is deep within help us to release the weight that we carry, the burden of the pain that we carry, and open up the space for healing. That is the power of vulnerability. Being able to open up our feelings and express them among trusted people. A trusted person helps us to release the weight, the burden of the pain that we carry inside of us here, so that we can create space for healing to take place in the innermost part of our souls. One thing that I can tell you is that our willingness to be vulnerable will allow us to experience deep reflection. It will allow us to introspect. It will allow us to be honest with ourselves. It gives us the opportunity to explore the root causes of our emotional pain. And ultimately, isn't that what we're looking for when we want to experience restoration to wholesomeness, to experience healing, to find area and opportunities for growth, despite what has happened to us, to see what can we learn from this experience that can bring us to the place of growth. And truly, God even requires us to be vulnerable with Him. And I've had many people who cannot even talk to God about how they feel inside because they think that, oh, they're not gonna sound right. They're not gonna be they're not gonna show that they have faith. With God, He knows how you're feeling already. And God wants us to be open with Him, to be vulnerable with Him, to be honest with Him. God can handle your emotions. Believe me, He can handle it so well. Go and read the book of Psalms and hear David in the rawness of his emotions, talking to God about his pain, about the people that are hounding him. Oh, he got to a point that he even said that his tears has become his food. That was the place he said that his enemies were hounding him like hungry lions and dogs chasing after his life. That was how vulnerable. He says, my soul is melted within me. He admits his shortcoming. He admits his flaws. He admits his weaknesses. He is very vulnerable before God. What about Job? Oh, Job didn't miss words at all. Oh, he said this at his ease. He questioned. But in everything he did, he was careful not to sin against God. So there is a way we can open it all up to God. Yeah, we judge him faithful, but he wants us to be real with him. And that's the power of the relationship that we have with God, that we can be real with him. And so, my dear friends, it's absolutely okay. Excuse me. Oh, dear, dear, dear. Excuse me. Excuse me. Hallelujah. All right, I need to catch my breath there. Mhm. So, as I was saying before the cough interfered, yeah, and hopefully it's not going to interfere again. Mm. Oh la la. Thank God that we have a God who can bear our burdens, who can bear our emotions, um, who can, who is willing to listen to us, who is asking us to come to Him in the place of prayer. You know, the Bible says that God is close to those who are brokenhearted. He is our comforter. He wants to comfort us in all our afflictions. And how do we receive the comfort of God if we're not going to tell Him how we have been wounded, how we are hurting? And God says He wants to comfort us in all our afflictions. And so, vulnerability requires us to acknowledge where we are, express our emotions in all the rawness of it, the struggles, the weakness, and bring them before God, and also trusted individuals who are skilled to support us. It means that we are willing to seek for help. If you are going through a painful experience in this season of your life, part of vulnerability will be your willingness to seek for help, to ask, to say, I'm being wounded, I am hurting. Is there anyone who can help me? And you know, that's where we come here every Tuesday to open up this door, to give you this access, and to let you know that help is available. I'm a transformational coach, a trauma transformational coach, and a trauma informed care specialist. That's what I do, helping people to experience healing and restoration to wholesomeness. But it starts with your willingness to be honest with your feelings, to acknowledge it, to be ready to seek for that help, to be ready to seek for that comfort. When God Bible says that He comforts us in all our afflictions, with the same comfort with which we'll comfort others, it requires us to be able to come to God and say, Lord, I've been wounded, I'm hurting. I need your touch. I need your comforting hand. You don't know how many times I have asked God to wrap me in the embrace, in His warm embrace, and father me with His love. I can't even count the number of times I have cried to the Father of all comforts and asked Him to bubble wrap me with His presence, to just encapsulate me in His arms and just let me feel His love and feel His comfort because I needed it. And I was courageous enough, I was humble enough and willing to be vulnerable to tell God, yeah, things are not adding up, God. I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. Something is not together here. And I need to have a honest conversation with the God who is my Father. And in that space, because we're open to God, because we're willing, He brings about people into our lives who can walk alongside with us to support us in our journey. And the joy that we have as Christians also is that we have the Holy Spirit to walk alongside with us. So, my dear friends, excuse me, if you have been wounded, if you have been crushed in the spirit, if you have been hurt, if you are going through a difficult time, it is an opportunity for you to embrace the power of vulnerability, a readiness to open up before God, to be vulnerable with Him, to bring your pain to Him in prayers, to bring those struggles, those challenges to Him. That's on the one part in prayers. The other part is your readiness to seek support from people who are qualified to provide that support for you. And we are many that have been trained, that are professionals who can provide this support to you. And many people that you can see in your sphere who, from what they teach, from what they share, you know that they have depth. They have gone through something and they have transformed what they have gone through to something that is more meaningful and significant, that can bring hope, that can bring comfort, that can bring, support to others, and they're available to guide you in your own journey to healing. The Bible tells us to carry one another's burden, and that's why we're here. God doesn't want you to do this journey alone. I don't want you to do this journey alone because I know how challenging it is. And you see, trauma isolates, pain isolates, grief isolates, loss isolates. And it isolates you at the point where you really need people around you. I want you to feel that nobody understands, that you alone are going through this situation. That's not true. If you open up at the right place, you will be amazed how many people have gone through the same journey who can come out and be of help to you. One thing that vulnerability would demand of us is that we remove the mask of self-sufficiency, the mask of perfectionism, the mask of God that everything is all right. We all know that in the public we can be one person, and when we come back into our own private space, we are completely different because we put on a mask to the public. We present a picture of who we are not because we want to hide who we are. We don't want people to know that we're struggling. It's human to struggle. It's human for us to be in touch with our humanity. It's part of the whole package of our humanity for us to be in touch with our frailty. I love this song, that it's a hymn that says that He knows my feeble frame. God knows how feeble your frame is. He knows your frailty. And there's nothing you can hide from God. So we need to be willing to be authentic, to be the real us, and to, you know, yeah, we need that courage to be able to say, this is it. It's not, this is what you get. This is where I am right now. I really don't care what any other person thinks about it. But it's important for me to be true to myself. I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. I need help. Recently, I was in a conversation with a group of people, and we were talking about how prostate cancer is taking a lot of men in their prime. And it's because men are not willing to be vulnerable enough to talk about this issue that is affecting their health. And so they hide it. They hide it until the situation has become aggravated. And at the end of the day, everybody suffers when we're not willing to be true to ourselves to say, I have a problem, I'm struggling, and I need help. We cannot continue to wear the mask. It may be able to hide our flaws, our weaknesses, but from others, but we can hide it from God. And if we want to receive His grace, if we want to receive the healing that only He can bring into our lives, then we must be willing to bring and admit our flaws, our weaknesses, our struggles before the one who knows us better than we know ourselves. And being vulnerable before God and also being vulnerable with respected people, trusted people, is actually an exercise of faith. It is saying that I know that God is faithful to bring the healing that I need. God has the power to restore me to wholesomeness. He has the power to reach deep within me where I have been wounded, where I'm hurting, and bring me healing. So I'm going to open it up before Him. I'm going to open it up before the people that He has brought into my life so that I can experience the true healing that is possible for me. My dear friends, if you believe that God truly loves you and He cares about you, it says that cast all your cares on the Lord, for He cares for you. That is a call to vulnerability. We need to be open and honest for us to be able to cast all our cares on Him because we know that He cares about us, He cares about our beings. And in this space, we use the truth of God's word as a foundation for the healing process that we need to have here. And today, I wanted to highlight for you the power of vulnerability to bring us to the place where we can experience wholesomeness again, where we can experience restoration to wholeness, where we can experience that transformation in the innermost part of our being that leads us to healing in our emotions, healing in our wounds. My earnest desire for you, my dear friends, is for you to be at that place where you experience that restoration, that healing, so that you can be the you that God created you to be, so that your painful past will not make you live in a shadow of yourself. I don't want you to live in the shadow of what happened to you. I want you to be able to move beyond what happened to you and experience the healing, the transformation that is possible, so that your story will not be in vain. Your story will add up to make life even different for somebody else. Your testimony of healing, your testimony of how you came out of what happened to you will be a source of encouragement to somebody else in the future. That's what I come here to do. Because the testimony of what I have been through has given me this leverage to be able to tell you that healing is possible, no matter what you have experienced, healing is possible. And today, one of the things that makes healing possible for you is your readiness to be vulnerable before God and before trusted friends, trusted professionals who can support your healing process. And I pray from the depth of my heart that there's something that I've said today that will be meaningful for you, that you can go back into your private space and reflect on and say, look, what is it that I'm willing to acknowledge? What it is within me that I need to express? What weights do I need to release so that I can give myself the permission to experience the freedom possible from this weight of my past, so that I can give myself the permission to experience the healing that will make me to live life to the full and to the overflowing. Your willingness to be vulnerable positions you to release that weight so that you can open the door to experience the new things that are possible for you, to experience the future of possibility. I began this conversation sharing with us why it's important for us to embrace vulnerability, teachability, and transformation in order for us to experience restoration to wholeness, emotional healing. And I've taken time to expound a bit more on the power of vulnerability. In the next episode, I'm going to talk more about the power of teachability. And ultimately, we will talk about the power of transformational change. And I hope that these three coming together will encourage you, will position you to experience the healing that is possible for you, no matter what your pain, what your own particular experience may have been. Dear friends, when we release the weights, we enter into this new space where we can experience freedom, liberty, joy, peace, relief in the innermost part of our being. And like I mentioned earlier, you don't need to do this journey by yourself. There are trusted people around you if you need help. And that is number one step of being vulnerable, seeking for help. If you need help, please reach out to me and let's see how we can help you find the help that you need. If I'm not the help that you need, I may be able to point you in the direction of someone who is trusted, who can support you. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. I pray with all my heart that you will prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. I pray that you will experience healing in the innermost part of your being, that your soul will be refreshed, renewed, and reinvigorated so that you can live the fullness of life that is possible for you. Don't hold on to the pain of the past and don't waste your pain. Don't hold on to the pain of the past. Be willing to be vulnerable so that you can heal from that pain and then transform that pain to power, to purpose, and to profit. That's what we do in this group. So have a good night rest. Take time to ponder on what we have shared tonight and take a journal and write what is meaningful for you and what is the application for your own unique experience. And if you do have questions, please feel free to share with me. Until we meet again next week, Tuesday, I wish you God's rich blessings and overflowing favor. God bless you. Good night.